No one believed it at first. Not the scientists, not the military, not even the people watching the breaking news across the world. But there it was, hovering in the dark sky above Earth, a ship older than any record, older than any known civilization. It didn't come with a sound or warning. It simply appeared one night, just above the clouds. Satellite cameras caught it first, long, sharp, and broken in places, glowing with a strange blue light. People said it looked like something out of a forgotten dream. NASA tried to cover it, but it was too late. The footage had already spread. Across the globe, everyone was asking the same question: where did it come from? And why now? But hidden deep in an old underground lab in Arizona, one man already knew. Dr. Ilya Stone, a retired astrophysicist who once worked for a secret space program, dropped his coffee the moment he saw the ship. His hands trembled. He recognized the design, the symbols etched into the metal. He had seen them before, but only once, in an ancient, sealed vault beneath Antarctica. 20 years ago, he had helped uncover frozen ruins buried under miles of ice. Inside, they found a broken tablet, glowing faintly with the same blue light. The carvings spoke of a race, human but not human, who once ruled Earth and then vanished without a trace. The scientists laughed it off as myth, but Ilya never forgot. He spent his life searching, watching the stars, waiting. And now, after 20,000 years, it was back. The ship matched every detail of that ancient record. It was not just a relic, it was the very same ship. But the strangest part wasn't that the ship had returned. It was what came with it. Across the Earth, only children began to dream of the ship. They described it perfectly, down to the cracks on its hull and the eerie sound it made, a soft hum like a song from nowhere. Some kids drew it in school without ever seeing the news. Others whispered names they shouldn't have known, names buried in lost languages. Parents grew afraid. Hospitals filled with children speaking in unison during sleep. We are the echo. We are coming home. Ilya packed his things and drove through the night. He needed answers. If the dreams were real, then something was waking up, and it was inside that ship. But he wasn't the only one moving. In space, a Black Ops military crew was already approaching the vessel, armed with weapons and fear. Their orders were clear: board the ship and find out what's inside. The moment they docked, their cameras went dark. No signal. No voices. Just static. The world held its breath. Then, a single transmission came through, only one sentence, whispered in an old human tongue no one should have known. We remember you. That night, the moon seemed to flicker. Birds flew in strange patterns. Time itself felt like it had slowed. And in the silence of the world, every person felt something shift, like an invisible door had opened. What had returned wasn't just a ship. It was a memory, alive, ancient, and angry. And Earth, after sleeping for so long, was finally being remembered. But remembered by what? Ilya felt it in his bones. Something was coming, something older than time itself. And it had not come in peace. Not this time. Ilya reached the edge of the old military zone by dawn, the sun barely touching the horizon as he drove past rusted fences and long-forgotten checkpoints. This place, known as Site 9, had been closed for over a decade. But Ilya had worked here once before he was forced to leave when his research was labeled unapproved theory. Back then, he spoke of ancient human-like beings that lived before history began, a race that vanished without a war, without a trace. No one believed him, not even his closest friend, Captain Myro Lang, who had commanded the Site 9 unit before it was shut down. But now, as news of the orbiting ship spread like wildfire, Ilya knew she would be here too. As expected, she stood waiting outside the old gate, holding a gun, looking older but sharp-eyed as ever. "You're late," she said with a tired smile. "And you look scared." Ilya didn't smile back. "It's the same ship, Myra. The same one from Antarctica." Her face dropped. She knew he wasn't lying. Inside the site, the underground command room had been hastily reactivated. Screens glowed, voices filled the air, and every major agency on Earth had a representative in the room: NASA, ESA, China's space program, even private tech companies. All trying to make sense of what hovered above them. A few tried to dismiss the ship as alien technology, something to be feared or destroyed. But Ilya stood and faced them all. "It's not alien. It's human. Or, what we once were." They laughed, of course. Until Myra played the last recording from the Black Ops crew. That voice, the strange, hollow voice, spoke again. "We remember you. Do you remember us?" Suddenly, the room fell silent. In New York, a boy named Joshua began to draw circles on his walls. He had never spoken a word in his life, not even to his mother. But now, his voice echoed through the apartment, low and emotionless. "Open the gate." In Brazil, a girl started to hum a tune never heard before. When her parents asked where she learned it, she simply pointed at the sky. Hospitals around the world reported a spike in children entering sleep paralysis. Each one of them whispered the same word: echo. Back in Site 9, Ilya decoded the strange blue patterns on the ship's surface. They weren't just designs. They were instructions. Coordinates. A message. The ship wanted to be found, not just seen. But where? Suddenly, one of the analysts gasped. The numbers pointed to a location deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. A trench no human had reached. Myra stared at the screen. "Are they trying to show us where they came from?" she asked. Ilya shook his head. "No. They're showing us where we came from." That night, storms hit every coastline near the Pacific. Satellites showed strange pulses from under the sea: light, movement, and sound. Like something was calling the ship back. The world began to panic. People believed it was the end. Riots broke out. News anchors cried live on air. But in the middle of it all, children across the planet spoke the same phrase in perfect unison: "We are the echo. You left us behind. Now we return as one." Ilya knew it was a warning. The ship in orbit was just the beginning. Something else was waking up. Something buried. Something that remembered everything humanity had forgotten. As the sky darkened the next day and the moon turned red for a moment too long, the world realized that history was wrong. Mankind had not evolved alone. They had erased something powerful, and now it was coming back. And it wasn't just visiting. It wanted justice. Or revenge. A week passed since the ship appeared, but it hadn't moved, not even an inch. It just hovered there, silent, glowing, as if it were waiting. Down on Earth, chaos was spreading fast. Countries shut their borders. Armies were placed on alert. Conspiracy theories filled the internet. Some people believed it was the end of the world. Others thought it was a test from God. But to Ilya, it was something much more ancient, something mankind had buried, not just in the ocean, but in their history, in their own minds. Site 9 was now fully active again, and teams worked day and night to decode everything the ship had sent through its strange symbols and electromagnetic pulses. But what scared Ilya the most weren't the lights, or the dreams, or even the orbiting ghost ship. It was the children. More than 1,000 across the globe had now slipped into a deep, frozen sleep. Their hearts beat slow, their skin grew cold, and they began muttering words in a language no one could trace except Ilya. It was the same language he had once found carved into the Antarctic ruins, the same language spoken by a civilization wiped from all memory. A civilization he now believed wasn't just forgotten but deliberately erased. Ilya sat in the command room with Myra as they watched new footage from the Pacific Trench. An underwater drone had picked up movement. Not a creature, not a seaquake, but a structure. Large, angular, and glowing faintly, the same blue light as the ship. It looked like a door. "We need to go down there," Myra said, jaw tight. "We need to see what's inside." But Ilya wasn't so sure. What if we open it and let something out? Myra didn't answer. They both knew it might already be too late. Around the world, strange things were happening. Ancient ruins in Egypt began vibrating. A stone monolith in Siberia cracked open. And near Peru, an old temple that had never been explored suddenly lit up from within, as if powered by something unseen. It was like the earth itself was remembering. Then came the message from the ship. For the first time, it sent a direct transmission to every major satellite network on Earth. But not in a human voice. It was the combined voices of every sleeping child, speaking as one. "We are not invaders. We are your memory. We were cast out. Forgotten. Now the gate will open." That same night, in a small coastal town in Japan, the sea pulled back so far it exposed miles of land that had not seen sunlight in thousands of years. And then, without warning, a tower of black stone rose from the ocean floor. It pulsed with the same light, and then just as quickly it cracked. Out of the crack came a shape, too big and too strange to fully understand. It didn't move like any machine or creature. It floated quietly toward the surface. And with it, the dreams intensified. Children began to speak about a second Sunday. They said it would rise not in the sky, but in the sea, and that when it did, the world would change forever. Ilya stood staring at the screen, hands cold, heart pounding. This wasn't just a ship. It was a key. And the Earth was its lock. Somewhere in the forgotten past, something terrible had happened, something humanity chose to forget. But now, the ones they left behind were returning. And this time, they remembered everything. The world felt heavier now, like something unseen had wrapped itself around the planet. The strange object that rose from the Pacific Ocean was no longer alone. Over the next 48 hours, more towers began to rise, one from the Sahara Desert, another from the Arctic ice, one deep in the Amazon, and the last in the mountains of Mongolia. Each one looked different, but they all glowed with the same eerie blue light. And each one made the same deep humming sound, a vibration that humans could feel in their bones but not hear with their ears. Governments scrambled jets and drones to investigate, but the towers emitted a strange energy field that fried electronics within a 2-mile radius. Soldiers who got too close became confused, then silent, then unconscious. Some of them never woke up. Others woke up, different. Ilya stood in the command room, watching live satellite feeds from around the globe. The symbols from the ship matched the symbols glowing on the towers. "This is a global activation," he whispered, "a memory being reawakened." Myra turned to him. "What does it mean?" He looked at her, his eyes hollow. "It means the Earth was part of something once. Something we don't understand." Then, without warning, the orbiting ship began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, spinning gently until its nose pointed straight down toward Earth. For the first time, its engines lit up with fireless light. Everyone watching held their breath. It didn't fall. It didn't crash. It descended like it remembered the way home. But the sky above it cracked only for a second, like lightning without thunder, and when it did, stars blinked out for a moment. The ship came to rest above the Pacific, right over the first tower. And then, everything stopped. Time didn't freeze, but it felt like it did. Birds stopped mid-flight. Waves paused. Even the wind held still. It lasted only seconds, but in that moment, every human on Earth felt the same thing, a presence, watching, remembering, searching. And then came the scream. Not from the ship, not from the towers, but from the children. Across the planet, those who had been asleep all sat up at once and screamed the same single word, "Awaken." That same moment, Ilya's computer lit up. A message appeared, ancient letters formed in a language long lost but somehow understood by everyone who saw it. "The gate is open. The echo will return." Myra turned pale. "Echo, that's what the kids called themselves." Ilya nodded. "It's not just a name. It's what they are. They were us once. Or something close. A version of humanity we erased or abandoned." Deep beneath the Pacific, sensors picked up a new energy pulse. Something was rising below the seafloor, something bigger than the ship. A shape the size of a small city. It was alive. But it wasn't biological. It was made of metal and stone and memory. And it had a heart, one that beat once every hour, shaking the ocean floor. In a panic, nations launched missiles at the towers. None reached their targets. They vanished mid-air, swallowed by invisible fields. The ship responded by sending out a second signal, this time through every child's voice again, "You forget. We forgive. But you must see what you've done." That night, People began seeing things in their dreams, visions of cities made of glass and light, of humans flying without machines, of peace without war. But then the vision turned dark. Fire. Betrayal. A great division. One side wanted power. The other wanted harmony. The powerful won and buried the rest. They erased them from history, sealed their cities, and left them behind. Until now. Ilya stared at the screen. We buried our own kind, he said softly. And now they're rising to remind us who we were. But the most frightening part had yet to come. In the final seconds before dawn, the tower in Mongolia opened and something stepped out. It wasn't a creature, and it wasn't human. It was something in between. Tall. Pale. Glowing eyes. It looked at the sky, raised a hand, and the orbiting ship responded by glowing even brighter. It had returned not as a vessel of war, but as a beacon. It was calling them back. And now, they were answering. The being that stepped out of the Mongolian tower did not speak. It did not blink. It simply stood there in the cold wind, looking toward the stars as if it could hear something no one else could. Its skin was white like snow, its body tall and thin like a walking shadow, and its eyes, they glowed with a soft, blue light that flickered in rhythm with the humming towers. People watching on satellite feeds froze. Some fainted. A few broke down crying. Not from fear but from something deeper. It was as if the sight of this being pulled something old out of them, something forgotten. Myra couldn't stop shaking as she watched it. Why does it feel like I know it? She whispered. Ilya didn't answer. He was staring at the symbols now spreading across every screen in Site 9. They weren't random. They were a memory map, a sequence of events that had been buried inside Earth itself. Every ruin, every strange discovery, every lost artifact, it had all been connected. The echo had hidden pieces of themselves in the deepest places, waiting for the moment humanity was ready. Or perhaps, waiting for the moment they could no longer be ignored. Then the rest of them came. From each tower, one by one, more beings stepped out. All of them looked different, some tall, some small, some wearing robes, others almost naked, but all of them carried that same glow in their eyes. And all of them walked toward water, as if the sea called them. All at once, the oceans began to change. Not just rise but shift. Currents moved backward. Storms gathered in places where skies were once calm. Fish disappeared in schools. And deep in the Pacific, the massive structure beneath the seabed rose even higher. It was a city, not ruins, not rubble, but whole towers of black and silver, clean and untouched, as if they had never aged. It floated to the surface without a sound, and the orbiting ship above glowed brighter than ever. People called it the second sun. But it was older than the first. Ilya now understood. It's Atlantis, he said, barely able to breathe. But not the myth. Not a sunken kingdom. It's the memory of who we used to be. They lived there. Before we erased them. Myra stepped back, shaking her head. Why did we erase them? Why would we bury something like this? Ilya turned slowly. Because they refused to make war. They believed in peace, in memory, in truth. And we chose power. Across the globe, the children, the ones still asleep, began to float. Not high, just inches off their beds. Their bodies shimmered with the same blue light now seen in the echo. Parents screamed. Doctors couldn't understand it. But the children were not sick. They were connected. They were the bridge. Through them, the echo were reaching out, not to destroy but to awaken what was left of themselves inside humanity. Because even though they had been erased, not all of them had died. Some of their energy, their minds, had passed into the bloodline of the people who destroyed them. It had slept in silence for thousands of years. And now, it was waking up inside the young. They're not here to kill us, Ilya said slowly. They're here to become us again. Or to finish what we started together before we betrayed them. But not everyone wanted peace. In secret bases, military leaders formed a new plan. They believed the floating city in the Pacific was a threat. They wanted to launch a weapon unlike anything Earth had used before, one kept hidden even from world governments. A kinetic satellite designed to strike from orbit. Ilya tried to stop them, begged them, but they refused to listen. If we wait too long, they'll take over, one general said coldly. They'll rewrite who we are. Maybe we need to be rewritten, Ilya snapped back. Maybe we don't deserve to be the ones in charge. But they launched the weapon anyway. And in the silence of space, a long metal rod, traveling faster than sound, was released from Earth's orbit, headed straight for the Echo City. For a moment, the world stood still. The Echo beings lifted their heads. The children opened their eyes. And the orbiting ship for the first time moved violently. It shot forward, placing itself between the weapon and the city below. Then, in a flash of blue fire, the ship was gone. Not broken. Not destroyed. Just, gone. The weapon fell into the ocean, hitting nothing. The city remained untouched. And then the towers responded. All 5 towers pulsed once, and the sky over each one opened into swirling black clouds shaped like eyes. Ilya fell to his knees. He knew what was coming. The Echo had offered memory, connection, peace. But Earth had answered with violence. And now, they were going to show the world what had been erased. The sky had never looked like that before, like it was alive. The black clouds above each of the 5 towers spun slowly, pulsing like giant eyes watching the world. Lightning crackled in complete silence, and strange symbols formed across the skies, visible not just in one place, but everywhere at once. It didn't matter where you stood, New York, Moscow, Nairobi, or Islamabad, everyone looked up and saw the same shapes, glowing above them. Then the dreams returned, stronger than ever. Not just in children this time, but in adults too. People who had never dreamed suddenly found themselves in visions that felt more real than memory. They saw glowing cities with streets that sang as people walked. They saw knowledge pass through touch, not words. They saw skies filled with floating structures, laughter, harmony, and then they saw the betrayal. A great war that was never recorded. One side those who wanted the world to stay equal, open, peaceful. The other side those who hungered for more, for control, for borders, for weapons. The war was short, brutal, and full of heartbreak. The peaceful ones, the Echo, chose not to fight. They sealed their cities, their minds, and their legacy inside the earth. And before vanishing, they made one final choice, to leave a part of themselves behind, buried in the future bloodlines of their enemies, hoping that one day, those seeds would bloom. Now, that day had come. But Earth had greeted them with missiles and death. Ilya stood on the deck of the ship Myra had secured a private vessel headed toward the Pacific. They were going to the floating city, to Atlantis, to find answers before the world made the final mistake. As they approached, they saw the water part gently, revealing silver walkways and tall black towers that stretched toward the clouds like they had never sunk at all. No one spoke. Even Myra, who had seen wars and led armies, was silent. The air was thick with memory. Not fog. Not heat. But memory. You could feel it against your skin, like someone was whispering your name from a time before time. At the center of the city, they found a circle of white stone, surrounded by 5 tall figures, the Echo Elders. They did not speak, but their thoughts echoed in the minds of those who entered the circle. You feared what you forgot, they said. You killed what you did not understand. Ilya stepped forward, falling to his knees. We didn't know. We didn't remember. You did, the voices said. You buried it. You rewrote history with fire. All across the earth, cities began to change. Cracks formed in concrete. Buildings shook not from quakes, but from something underneath. The old structures, hidden for thousands of years, were pushing upward. Temples with no names. Statues of people that looked half human, half light. Monuments covered in ancient writing that glowed in the night. And people remembered. Not all at once, but enough. Some dropped to the ground, crying without knowing why. Some screamed. Some felt warmth. They saw their ancestors, not just the ones in family trees, but the ones erased by lies. The Echo had never truly left. They had been waiting. Watching. Preparing. You must choose now, the voices said in every mind on earth. Remember or repeat. But as always, not everyone wanted peace. Inside the United Nations, leaders argued in panic. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to surrender. But a few, driven by fear, wanted to fight. A last strike was planned. A hidden bunker in the Alps held a forbidden weapon, an ancient relic found in a desert decades ago, long believed to be alien. Now they believed it was made by the Echo and wanted to use it against them. Ilya heard about the plan through a broken radio signal. His heart nearly stopped. If they use that, it'll trigger something we can't stop. Myra grabbed her gear. Then we stop them first. But before they could move, the Echo Elders raised their hands. And across the world, time bent. People saw their future cities burning, oceans black, sky cracked open. Then they saw another path: peace, truth, a world without war. The Echo gave everyone one final message: we are not gods. We are not ghosts. We are you before you forgot yourselves. Then the towers began to dim. The orbiting ship, the one that had vanished after blocking the attack, reappeared, descending slowly above the city. It wasn't damaged. It was transformed. bigger, brighter. It carried not just light but memory. It landed in the center of Atlantis, and the children across the globe stood and walked, as if pulled by some inner force, toward places only they could see. Some walked into fields. Some into forests. Some into water. No one stopped them. They knew these children were not being taken. They were being awakened. Ilya turned to Myra, his voice low. They didn't come to conquer. They came to remind us who we were meant to be. But even as hope filled the air, a silent countdown had begun. In the Alps, the weapons activation had already started. A light unseen by the human eye blinked inside the Earth's core. Something old, something buried long ago by the echo themselves, began to stir. And it was not kind. The sky above Earth began to darken not with storm clouds, but with something more unnatural. The stars started to vanish again, one by one, not blocked by clouds, but fading. Like someone was turning off the lights of the universe. Birds flew low, animals ran from the forests, and in the oceans, whales began to sing songs no one had ever recorded before, long, deep cries that echoed across the waters. In Site 9, Ilya stood frozen as the satellite feed showed what was happening in the Alps. The weapon was glowing now, buried deep beneath layers of rock, its surface covered in the same symbols the echo had used but twisted, broken, as if rewritten by force. Years ago, a private research team had found it in an old desert crater, assuming it was alien. But it wasn't. It was an echo artifact, turned into something deadly by human hands. A weapon designed not to destroy bodies but memory. If fired, it would release a pulse that would erase everything connected to the echo, everything from their towers, their city, their people, even the dreams and traces left inside the minds of children. It was the ultimate forgetting. They're trying to wipe them out again, Myra said, horror on her face. A second betrayal. Ilya slammed his fist on the console. They don't understand. If we do this again, there won't be a third chance. At that moment, the Echo City began to tremble not from fear, but as if responding to the coming danger. The orbiting ship, now resting above the city, lit up like a sun. The elders gathered in a circle, their hands raised toward the stars. Across the world, the children responded. They closed their eyes, took deep breaths, and began to hum not a song of sadness, but of strength. A resonance passed through the ground, through the water, through every human heartbeat. And something deep inside the earth woke up. It was not alive in the way humans understand, but it remembered. Beneath the floating city, far below the ocean floor, something shifted. An old mechanism, untouched for millennia, turned once. It was not a machine or a weapon, it was a key. A final lock, put in place by the Echo when they first went into hiding. A lock that would only open if humanity betrayed them again. And now, that key had turned. Back in the Alps, soldiers prepared to activate the weapon. Scientists warned against it, but were silenced. "This is our world," one commander barked. "We decide what stays and what goes." But as the final switch was pulled, the weapon suddenly stopped. Its light died. The screens went black. Panic spread through the control room. "What's happening?" someone shouted. But no one knew. Then a voice filled the air. Not from a speaker. Not from a human. It was inside them. You have chosen again. So we must choose too. And far away, in the center of Atlantis, the Echo ship opened. A massive chamber unfolded, revealing a single glowing orb pulsing like a heart. Inside it were faces. Thousands of them. Not living, not dead. Stored memory. Every Echo soul that had been lost in the betrayal. They were not ghosts, they were data, consciousness, life itself in digital form. And now, they were waking. The children on Earth fell to their knees, arms lifted, their eyes glowing the same blue as the orb. We remember, they said in unison. Then, from the towers around the world, beams of light shot up into the clouds. Each tower activated, and each beam reached into the stars, like they were calling out to something far beyond Earth. Ilya stared at the readings. They're not attacking, he whispered. They're sending a signal. A message, or maybe a warning. Myra turned, her voice trembling. To who? That was when the sky cracked open, not metaphorically, but truly. A rip tore across space above the Earth, revealing something vast, something silver, something alive. It wasn't a ship. It was a vessel of knowledge, older than planets, floating just outside the edge of human vision until now. The Echo had not come alone. They had sent a signal across time, to the part of themselves that left long ago. And now, that part was returning. The stars began to blink back into view, but they were different now, changed. The sky looked deeper, like a veil had been lifted. Humanity wasn't alone and maybe never had been. But the choice still remained. The Echo had not attacked. They had not forced anyone. But now that the final memory was unlocked, the Earth would have to decide, carry this truth forward or try once again to bury it in silence. Myra looked at Ilya. It's not just about remembering anymore. It's about becoming. But Ilya could feel it's something darker, deeper, still hidden in the Earth. A last secret. One the Echo had kept even from their own children. And whatever it was starting to rise. The ground trembled not from machines or storms, but from something older than either, something that had been waiting quietly beneath the surface of Earth for over 20,000 years. As the Echo ship pulsed above the ocean and the towers glowed in every corner of the world, that last secret began to rise. It didn't break the surface with fire or thunder. It rose in silence, slowly, like it had no need to rush. From deep beneath the crust, from a place no human had ever mapped, came a shape too large to see all at once. It was not a city, or a machine, or even a creature. It was something beyond understanding, a forgotten piece of the planet itself. A living memory, made of metal, stone, and ancient light. Ilya stood at the edge of the floating city, staring into the horizon as the sea split open and that shape rose like a mountain from the deep. It had no name. Even the Echo had only called it the Witness. Myra stood beside him, unable to breathe. "What is it?" she asked, voice small. Ilya's eyes filled with tears. "It's the one that remembers everything," he whispered. "Even the things we were never meant to know. All across the world, People looked up or toward the sea, sensing the shift in the air. The children had gone quiet now. Their glowing eyes watched the skies, as if waiting for something greater. The rift in the stars remained open above the earth, and from it, light streamed through like beings made of sound and stardust. They weren't ships. They were life itself. They came not with weapons, but with a song. The true echo. Those who had left long ago were returning home. But they weren't coming to reclaim the earth. They were coming to witness whether Earth's people were ready to hold their truth. The witness, now fully risen, hovered silently above the deep Pacific. Its surface shimmered with images, memories of the world long before modern humans. Peaceful cities. Floating temples. People with glowing hands passing energy instead of violence. And then destruction. A betrayal so great it cracked the world. The betrayal had not been by one man or one country, but by a hunger inside the human spirit, a desire to possess rather than understand. The echo had not simply been erased, they had been sacrificed so others could rule. Now, the world saw that truth with its own eyes. Across every screen, every sky, every reflection of water and glass, the earth showed its forgotten past. The people wept. They trembled. But something else happened too. People began to kneel not out of fear, but out of shame, out of respect, out of a silent understanding that they were not the beginning, but the continuation of something ancient and sacred. "We are sorry," a child whispered in a forest. "We forgot." "We were afraid," said a mother in a desert. "But we want to remember." The Echo Elders, standing in the center of the floating city, raised their arms. They looked tired. Not angry. Not proud. Just tired. And then they spoke not in words, but in feeling. "You are the ones who must choose. Not for us but for yourselves." In the Alps, the weapon control systems failed completely. The team assigned to launch it stepped away, unsure of why they had ever believed in such destruction. In every corner of the planet, the message repeated, "You can become who you were meant to be or continue forgetting, forever." Myra grabbed Ilya's hand. "What do we do now?" He looked up at the stars, at the orbiting ship, at the beings descending in silence through the skies like falling light. "We listen. And we remember." The witness, now fully awakened, sent a single beam of light into the Earth's core. For the first time in recorded history, the planet itself responded. The magnetic fields pulsed in rhythm with the beam. Storms calmed. Volcanoes stilled. Earthquakes paused. The planet was not just alive, it was watching. And then, something incredible happened. The Echo children, the ones born from human bloodlines but carrying old memory, began to glow brighter. They were changing. Not into aliens or gods, but into bridges between the past and the future. They were not here to rule, but to lead gently, to guide what humanity could still become. One by one, they placed their hands on the towers, and as they did, the towers folded into light and vanished, their purpose fulfilled. The floating city dimmed. The ship above it faded into the sky. The rift in the stars closed, but not fully. A sliver of it remained, like a window left open. Just enough to remind the world that it was no longer alone, and never had been. The witness sank back into the ocean, silent, gentle, as if it had seen what it needed to see. And then, peace. True peace. Not silence, but balance. For the first time in 20,000 years, Earth was whole again, not because the echo had taken it back, but because they had shared its truth. Ilya sat on the dock, watching the waves return to normal. Myra stood beside him, smiling softly. "So, do you think people will remember?" He nodded, slowly. "They will. Because this time, we chose to." And far away, in the stars, the light blinked once. Watching. Waiting. Hoping.